All right. It is 10:25 and we are going to begin today's meeting, Sunday, March 8th, 2026, for the deliberation to finish the deliberation of the fiscal year 2027. We're going to begin with roll call. Alex and Alex C are both absent. Vice Chair Ba, that's me, present. Parliamentarian Rachel,
Present.
Abby,
Present.
Eros,
Present.
and Austin.
Present.
I believe this is still quorum. All right, we meet quorum. So what we got to finish off today is, yes.
Numbers are up here for where we're at. So currently you all have recommended $5.896 million, and we have to cut another 20,088 in order to meet our full allocation.
Right. And I believe where we finished off yesterday, we were talking about working out that last 20,000 and then discussing whether or not we felt inclined to make some minor tweaks here or there to the percentages that we discussed yesterday for the requesting areas. Yes?
Yeah, I think that was ECLC the only 5% one so far. And I think we were at the verge of going through, and that's where we left.
No, I think we have a few 5%.
Okay, we went back.
Yeah, just Mar. There were some that we overrode just with the different amount based on Alex's suggestion. And yeah. I thought we were going to start by talking about case management.
That is, that's why we did, if I remember correctly, that's why we stopped a few minutes early yesterday, because we didn't think we were going to have the time for that and we didn't want to rush.
I've received communications from Alex M, and he says, "Oh crap, I'll be there soon."
Yeah, daylight savings got him.
I think he wanted to talk about case management specifically, so we could talk about a different one and then come back to case management.
Okay. I would still like to talk about the ECLC. I don't want to be I'm sorry if I sound evil, but again, I believe that our primary job here is to ensure that the money that's coming in from the students goes to helping as many students as possible. We have 8,100 students. The current cut is at 5%, but the ECLC, even despite the fact that students are given priority for this, we don't have a lot of students that actually need this. And the predominant, most of the resources for the ECLC are going towards benefiting faculty. And regardless of how we fund them, they're gonna get the new floor that they needed for a while now. So we're still helping them out. But again, based on the numbers we looked at yesterday, there are, let's see, this year they had somewhere between 13 and 18 children from student parents, which gives us maybe 30 students that, and that's if just under half the kids have both parents attending the college, which is not particularly likely.
I think it ends up being about $7,000 per student. The S&A fee, if you allocate it by the students that are there, it's about $7,000 per student that's going. And not to mention, just to kind of add to your discussion, that the students who attend, they still do pay for this, the daycare services as well.
The students who aren't in need of the daycare center.
Correct, they do still pay, but it's a lower rate than what the staff pay by, I don't know how much, $10 a day? 10%.
10% isn't. I mean, I think that's interesting. I think that's probably nice from the cost of daycare, for considering how much daycare costs typically. But from my perspective, we're still essentially paying to take care of mostly faculty's kids. In some cases, twice as many kids from twice or more as many kids from faculty as we are from students, and alumni are included in this pool too. Our, I, I don't. I believe that education is important for all young folk, but I believe that we can save, from my perspective, we can save what we need, or we can save more of what we need from this area, because we're not harming as many students if we tried to do that as we would be necessarily harming the faculty a little bit. In addition, yeah, I was actually thinking something along another 7 to 10,000.
Okay, if you want to look up at the, oops, not that. If we do at a 9%, then that gets you, where you need to be. Let me make sure that was,
And then we can kind of adjust around the percentages that we have and bring that down as necessary.
was that 10%?
I think it would be beneficial to also look at the rest of the programs that we have and see if there's any other ones that would be able to take a bit of a cut. I'm just wary of continuing to decrease the ECLC funding, because although they have payments from the parents and the students that are using it, that's, from what my understanding was, that's mostly all they get from outside funding. So I think that there's other programs that have more resources to find the money that they might need than
Rachel,
UCLC does.
Did you look at their information on here that kind of, just to support what you're talking about with all their revenue? It includes their other funding?
Yeah, I was about to say, most of the people on this list don't pull in almost $1 million in other funding, like the ECLC does.
If I may, I believe that programs that, like Boss said and Aaron, programs that are somewhat sufficient enough to generate their own revenue will be able to handle the budget cuts better from S&A. Because if we were hypothetically to cut a program that does not receive any other funding besides from S&A, they would be significantly more impacted than programs that do.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers now, and I change my stance a bit more. But I think, yeah, 7 to 10% more max, just because personally I want them to make sure they have the resources.
Understandable. I think that's
and I have to
understandable.
point out, the only place that cut will come from is the student labor, unfortunately, because they do have over $400,000 worth of student labor.
That goes if the student labor is student aides. Are those people from the are those just general student positions, or are those people from a specific department?
No, just general student positions that like watch over the kids.
Okay. So if we take into account these, so I could have been reading this better earlier. If we take into account those students and the student parents, then we're still talking about roughly 50 students out of the 8,100 we have.
which is fair.
And like Robbie said yesterday, the sole purpose of S&A funds should not just be for student labor, so it should be for the benefit of the students. So that's important to keep in mind.
Do you all want to see maybe put this temporarily at a 7% decrease and see what that. Oh wait, I think I messed up my number. Yeah, I went the wrong way. How about that? So it gets a little bit closer.
I wanted to point out something and maybe I missed it, so please forgive me. If I'm scrolling back down here to the ones that are under 10,000, I thought we weren't cutting them at all.
True.
Sorry, Aaron. I know when we talked, I think you just added in the 5% when we went through everybody, but I think these ones, Lions Rock, Community Garden, KCWU, or I'm sorry, WSRN and Menashtash, we weren't going to cut it all. We were going to give them their ass since it was under 10K. So sorry, that just adds more to your guys' number over here, but
We still appreciate it.
yeah.
The thing we were waiting for Chair Alex M to arrive to discuss was case management. Yeah, I I'm still of the belief that the kindest, this might sound weird considering the essential target of this ends up being the early childhood learning center, but I still think that from my personal perspective that the kindest way to sort out this last little bit is to essentially take it from the people who can generate the most funding. And by far, the the people who are most capable of taking care of themselves is the early childhood learning center. Out of the people that we don't absolutely have to pay by according to our funding obligations.
So I understand so far is we're at 7% right now, and that is I can hardly see the screen from here. Was that 20,000?
Can you on the other side, Robbie? Yeah.
Oh, I see. So with 7%, that it's cutting them 20,726. That does take them a bit lower from what they had for funding for this year, but I do that pains me, but I do also agree with looking at how much they get from other funding. I don't like saying that I do agree with it.
We could also see what another 0.5% on the areas that took a 4% reduction might look like. If you want to just model that, I could
Yeah.
do that for you.
I agree with that. Could we look at Did we have any plans to look back at some of these other big ones like KCWU, Slice?
My understanding is that we were looking at potentially going back to Slice and and I thought we were sorted on KCWU, but my memory might not be serving properly.
Yeah, no, I think we probably were.
Yep. If you want to bring us back to something and give us your points of discussion, we are here, and that's what we're here for.
I have a question. I don't know if it's our job, but is there any possible way that we could look at ECLC's rates and see if we were to hypothetically cut them, how much would they have to raise their rates by, and then would they be able to break even?
I think that that's a nice and thoughtful idea, but we couldn't tell them how to do that anyway. We would kind of just have to hope that they would do what we think it would be prudent in order to address what we are kind of doing here. But that's not really our place or our job, is my understanding.
And I could also share that historically, that is what they have done.
Well, that's nice to know.
And I can, as the person who put the financial model together for the ECLC, yes, unfortunately, that is the only way that this will happen is we'll have to reduce expenses or increase fees, and we'll probably try to do a little bit of both. But ultimately, it'll have to come from somewhere.
Also useful information. Thank you.
One of the others you all mentioned yesterday that you wanted to come back to was Westside Career Services. If you remember that they asked for exactly what they needed to make one of the positions full-time. So currently you have them at a 5% cut. So by doing that, go ahead, 4%, sorry, Aaron, 4% cut. So that was mentioned yesterday about revisiting that one.
As I remember, what was it? What was the other West Side one? That was
Yeah, Westside Activities.
activities. I would think because that's one we're not touching. And I would think if we're not touching one of them, I kind of like equate those two a bit together. So why would we touch the other one?
So they asked for the exact amount to make a position full-time, correct? If we were to hypothetically give them, like, let's say a 5% cut, then the person wouldn't be able to obtain a full-time position anyways. So
We can just make that assumption.
then what if hypothetically we provide them, hypothetically, yeah, we provide them the amount of money to keep the person as part-time instead of, like the exact cut, because the person wouldn't be able to work full-time anyways.
So they're an 11-month position. So they were just asking for the additional amount to make them full-time. So if you don't fund them at that amount, then I would just safely assume that they would not be able to make that position full-time. It would just continue to be an 11-month position.
Noticing that for that allocation, the requested number is 163,000. The staff salaries and benefits is 150,000. It sounds like if we're looking at treating this and making the assumption that if we don't fund this fully, they can't go up to full time anyway. But it looks like we might be able to shave off a couple thousand from this and still be above the number for staff salaries and benefits that they would be needing.
You saying that 157?
Yes, I'm saying that 150.
Their budget shows something a little bit different, Ba, and I guess I could ask Aaron on the spreadsheet.
So keep in mind with the expenses over here, these are FY25 it's kind of a look back so you can see how what buckets they have historically spent their money in. The request, and so this 150 would probably represent roughly the 11 months. And so what they're asking for now is 10 months, and then that's why it's going to go up. And that is very rough math in my head, but that's probably why.
So yeah, so keep in mind from this number here, there'll be two essentially wage increases, 2 years worth, right, on top of this 150,000.
Okay. That's what. Thank you for that information. We like information.
I think for this one, especially after yesterday, looking at centered activities, and when we're like how much central students who are on the west side or online, how much the population that is, the amount of S&A funds that they pay. I personally think that we should not have, especially like with this, like it makes it so they can have a full-time position for over there. I would say we do give them the full amount.
So for clarity, if I'm hearing that correctly, you're saying that we should take into account the fact that the students being affected by this are still numerous. We're still talking about roughly 1,700 students, and they still pay the same fees. I understand that. That brings me back to I am so sorry to be Mojo Jojo on this. The Early Childhood Learning Center. I think that we should at least go back up to 8%.
And just to clarify on that last one, were you saying keep the cut the same at this level or actually make it 0? Yeah.
Make it no cut at all for them. But for the west side.
If I may, I think could MCC be relooked at, because I'm noticing that they're getting almost 6% more than their allocation last year.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear who you were talking about.
MCC on the spreadsheet is receiving 5.7% more than their fiscal year 26 allocation. So
Is that before or after I believe we put a 5% reduction on what they require? We put 4%. Okay. So is that before or after the 4%?
I think after. Apologies.
After? Wow. Okay. Well, there may be a location as well. With that being said, based on just the number, just based on the events that they do alone, MCC is serving a fair portion of our population. I hear what you're saying, and I think that we should go look at it. But I think
This is the just a reminder on the MCC. This is the one where they are getting a higher allocation because they have their new space, and so the additional funding is going to go to expanding the hours that they're open and stuff. So not that I just wanted to add that context, but continue with your.
Apologies, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that, but also another one that is seen, if we look at some of our big ones, that does have a big, well, not a super big, but even with the 4% off the KCWU, with them getting 96%, they do still have, it is an increase of 6.37% from this year's budget.
real quick, Chairman Matheson is back, so I'm gonna let him go ahead and take the reins whenever he's ready.
All righty. Thank you all for waiting around for me. Apologies, daylight saving got me. All right. Parliamentarian Rachel has filled me in on the conversation so far. It seems like we were discussing the MCC at a potential 7% cut, and we have jumped over to, ECLC at a potential 7% cut, and we've jumped over to the MCC discussion. I imagine talking about the range of students who are being given access to, essentially. So with that in mind, have we made a verdict on the ECLC discussion yet?
My understanding is that we're looking at these other places to potentially find a way not to hit the ECLC with upwards of 10%.
Okay.
In my worksheet up here, Alex, currently the ECLC is sitting at a 7% reduction.
Again, I apologize because I was absent during their presentation, but could KCWU be something that we could look at also? Because they're also receiving more than last year. But again, I was absent during their presentation, so I don't know. Maybe they expanded or something. So
That is 88.1 the Berg, yes.
I'm gonna just jump in here. It might be worth, now that Alex is here, maybe stalling this conversation of kind of 1%ing and 2%ing everybody and jump to our case management conversation, because depending on how that goes, that might prevent you all from having to go 0.5% here, 0.5% here, 0.5% there. Just sorry, just we're not making sure everybody's playing. Here we go around the mulberry bush again. And so,
I'm appreciative.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I can't seem to find my big notes, so that is an issue. Oh, this last year. This is last year's.
Do you remember the song? And basically it was like Ring Around the Rosie. Then you all fell down. But that's what I just say when people circle and circle and circle.
I seem to have misplaced my
Well, my.
no. Yeah, if I could just use yours for a bit, Rachel. No worries. Alrighty. Looking at the conversation for case management. So my main point of discussion for case management was in regards to killing guidelines. This case management, frankly, does not seem like something that exactly fits with the rest of the categories that we have been funding. If you look at everything else, these are predominantly student-facing organizations. These aren't really HR positions that we are funding predominantly. Case management, while it has an incredible position here on campus, and it is definitely a necessary thing, it might be too necessary for student dollars to be funding.
I am gonna evoke the Killian guidelines for a moment and just note that it is in there that you can have health and wellness programs for students. And so I think that like recreation, kind of falls within that. And this has come up in the past with other areas like the PATH Office of Health Promotion used to be S&A funded area. And at some time, the committee had decided that that should be a position that is part of the basic services that are provided by the university, which is also noted in the Killian guideline that S&A dollars should not be funded for like your tuition and your basic services. And then just lastly, last year, the committee had cut this allocation in half because there were two case managers that were being funded, and sort of a similar conversation that you all are about to have, that that maybe that is something that the university should be providing. And so the students said, we'll split it. And so that's kind of what brings us to where we're at now. And really, I think what Alex is discussing is this something that should be a basic service provided to you all through your tuition dollars? Or is this an additional service that is going to be considered a wellness program in that bucket using S&A dollars?
Would anybody be so kind as to give me the date of their presentation?
Feb 20.
February 20th.
20th.
Oh,
I
man.
just have a question. I think that this, again, like Erin said, is a basic necessity, but I'm wondering if S&A defunds or cuts this program, are other departments going to take kind of like responsibility for that and fund them, or will they completely just go out? Because I think that this is really a big necessity. and I wouldn't want them to, like, I wouldn't want the department to just die if they don't receive the funding that they require.
They do have, I think that in the case of what happened last year, they moved one of those positions over to the state side of their budget because they have state funding, as well for like mental health funding and things like that. So that's how they shifted last year. There's no way for us to say what they would do with an additional cut. Nor do we know if they have the budget in that mental health funding for an additional position. So.
If I recall, this was for a single case management position, is what this S&A funding was going to be used for. So this wouldn't be a defunding of the entire department. It would be a single case management position. I think the committee needs to have a very lengthy discussion about this because, Abby, I agree. My biggest fear is that what kind of image does it show that the S&A committee cuts case management when we are the people who have the most information in the room right now. Outside of this room, there will be a lot of dissenting opinions already. With that in mind, how can we justify, without the Killian guidelines aside, how can we justify not funding an entire position in case management?
I would also like to just point out, they provided some additional information in that, the very last page of it. It kind of shows the historical knowledge of their funding, and they talk about maybe some of the vacancies they had. But I think it's something for you all to look through real quick when they go back quite to 2012. So 14 years of data on how their funding has been laid out and things like that. So I just wanted to point that out as additional information for you to consider.
The more I read from what we were given for their report, the more the less I can imagine this just going away if we didn't fund it. This seems like the sort of thing that almost every major institution or functioning organization has, period. They might not call it case management if we did this, but I can't imagine the university not coming up with a way to handle crises. And yeah, is the student and service is the services and activities fee for handling for paying for people to handle crises is becomes my question. I think I'm inclined to agree with the chair when he says that this might be such a necessary part of life at the institution that it should already be being paid for. I also don't like. I think the argument that we make is best served by the fact that this is a basic position. This is no disrespect. This looks like we take care of, we help people who need resources, find out where they can get those resources. That can be handled in most offices. Shoot, a bunch of offices already do that. No disrespect. And even I speak as a student who needed help from this office at one point. Uh, but it's very surprising to me that this is paid for by the services and activities fee.
I also agree that it is a position and a resource that should be funded by the institution. My only worry is that it won't be. So if we made that decision that we wanted the institution to cover this position and the salary, and they just say no, then we are cutting case management out of a position that could be probably like help them with their resources and their being more efficient and helping more students. And so I am worried about trusting on the institution to do that and fully cutting everything out of the salary.
Point of clarification, Aaron or Robbie or Trent. Because this is a professional pro staff position, if we cut, let's say, half, that still means the other half has to come from somewhere else. So this isn't a like a programming or a student position. This is a pro staff position, which means no matter what, it has to come from somewhere if we give them something.
I also, sorry about that. I hear you, Rachel. I hear what you're getting at, but I would also say that this is the sort of position that I don't think the institution can get away with not having. The noise that would be made if they just didn't have this would be significant. We would essentially be forcing their hand here. That's what I think.
Austin.
I was going to go like with what Alex just clarified. If I hate, man, this is hard one to talk about. If we were to give them like half, then the rest would like
The rest would still have to
Yeah.
come from somewhere. My opinion, yeah, no, I get it, Austin. This is one of those decisions that is really tough, but with my background, I've been a student advocate my entire time since I've been here on campus. In my opinion, this is one of those situations where it should not be up to a group of 7 students to decide if a case manager should have a job or not. That is not something that should be on the S&A docket. That should be a university level decision. In my personal opinion, this is not something the S&A committee should be funding and for the future should not be discussing, because this is a service, yes, but this is a necessary service. This is on the level of HR, in my opinion.
I agree.
This is student HR, essentially.
Yeah, I think I absolutely hear what you're saying. For the sake of future students serving on the S&A council, I don't like the of all the things we have to respond to here, this is the one that feels most dangerous for us, because of what we have access to versus how busy other students are and what they see from the outside, what they might not understand. Anytime that someone is going, if in the future students are afraid to do what we're talking about doing here, then it means that other students aren't served, not just the ones that do have crises. And there are students with crises, but uh, but students across the board, means fewer of them are able to be taken care of by the fee that we are meant to distribute. In addition to that, the if we do what I mean to say is those students in the future might also be afraid to do what we're talking about doing. And if we do it now, we are essentially saving them from that and putting the responsibility that it sounds like the students who served on the council last year also agreed is the institution's responsibility on the institution.
The sad truth of this decision is that it's one of those decisions where it is kind of all or nothing. Because if we partially fund a singular case management position, and let's say they have $10,000 coming from S&A, it doesn't exactly make sense.
And can I just add something as far as one of the new processes this year, right, that the Board of Trustees asked us to do is you're all going to give your recommendation, and then there's going to be that cooling off period where these departments can respond. So this might be a great example, right? Depending on the decision you make, case management with all the other departments will be able to respond back, and then you can take that into account.
And they could make their case. Sorry, I like the pun.
All right. With this in mind, based on everything that has been discussed here, and based on the general consensus that I've heard from some of the committee members, what is our justification for not funding case management?
Pushing anywhere, but it seems like it is like a necessity that once again it should just be a necessity that is coming out of like a tuition standpoint instead of S&A, because it's a chance that it happens, but they're always I don't know, it's spaced my mind, but in a general sense it should just not be backed by S&A. It should be an overall campus.
It is also a state-funded area as well. That is also something that should be kept in mind. This isn't just an S&A funded area.
And in addition, my understanding is they also have special earmarked funding from the state of Washington for mental health. And I'm not saying that they have extra or anything like that, but there are other funding sources.
With that in mind, how does the committee feel about not funding case management in this position?
I think this is easily the heaviest decision we've had to make through this process, but I would, from my vote is to cut them and reallocate the money that would go towards them to as many students as we can.
I would have to agree. When I first saw them in presenting, it hit me really hard with the idea that something as vital as this would be decided from us instead of the institution itself and come from tuition. So yeah, I painstakingly agree.
I'm on the same boat. I think this is a program that that not only should be implemented by the institution, it already is in a lot of other institutions, and not on the burden of student advocates such as us.
We also have to keep in mind this is a singular position. This is not the department as a whole. This is a singular pro staff position. I believe, personally, it is within the rights of the S&A committee through the Killian guidelines and general, as our main focus is student reach. This is a singular staff member. While I am not saying that that singular staff member will not meet with many students, realistically, how can a singular staff member compare to an entire department? With that being said, Aaron, if we do not fund case management, what does our new total look like?
Okay, so this is with today's updates of increasing the reduction of the ECLC. And updating the less than $10,000 areas back to fully funded because I had accidentally included that. Then you have an additional $66,000 to allocate. And that also just kind of keeping in mind what you might recall September this year when you all started with a small balance in your supplemental of about $14,000. That was because the committee last year, when they were doing this, and they got to the end, they left an unallocated amount so that the committee, you all, would have something to start with. So you all are, your options. That is one of your options that you can reallocate all or a portion of this. And anything unallocated, we would theoretically carry forward for the supplemental budget.
Here's now we have officially reached and exceeded our savings goal. Congratulations, the S&A committee. However, I am going to propose a quick 10-minute recess for us to get our bearings. Once we come back, I want to discuss how much we should leave in the supplemental pot as overflow and how much we should reallocate back into the areas we cut. So we no more cutting.
I just want to also, one thing before you recess, the other change that was made from last night was to eliminate the reduction to the career services west side budget. So that's a 0 reduction.
10-minute recess. Alrighty, we will be reconvening at 11:24. Alrighty, I believe our advisors might have something to share.
Aaron and Trent and I were just reviewing during the break since you have a little bit of surplus. Let me go share the screen. Sorry. Okay, I look. Okay, sorry, y'all. I just wanted to be able to reference that. So since you have a little bit of extra that we're talking about potentially giving to supplemental, we wanted to review back through a couple budgets that are literally only pay for full-time staff, because some of them we do have a cut on currently, which means that they would be short of paying their full-time staff, which they may have to figure out. Again, we do have a cooling off period, so they can provide feedback and share this. The West Side Career Services, you did not cut, so that one's good to go. The only other one we identified is SLICE student involvement budget, which covers the ASCWU Board of Directors advisor and the SLICE admin person. So it is literally just staff. There's no goods and services in that budget. So you all can say you want to keep it with the cut you're currently at, and then they get their cooling off period to provide us feedback and things like that. But I just wanted to point that out, and Aaron's checking a few more that we might bring up as something for you all to consider. Revisiting.
And yeah, and just to add to that, right, if we didn't fund that position, but they kept him, most likely they'd have to come back next year to ask for supplemental. So even if you kept it for supplemental, they'd probably have to come back and get it next year. So just adding that.
So if we went ahead and gave them what they needed there, how much would that be?
The reduction was 610692. So it would get us, we would still have 60,000 left.
I think we should just go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
I think that was it.
Alrighty. With that in mind, I open discussion for how we can use the remaining 60,000. Whoever wants to go first.
Before we go into how we're going to spend this amount, I would like to posit the idea of leaving roughly 20,000. So this, my vote here is to treat this as though we're spending 40,000 instead of 60,000.
I agreed that at least 20,000 would be good. My initial thought was half and half, so 30,000 being allocated back into these organizations and 30,000 for a supplemental.
All right. Well, we will go forward with the idea that we will be having a remaining of roughly 20,000 to 30,000, and we'll just kind of cut that down to 25,000 for now, just to have a nice median.
I agree with that.
Alrighty. Well,
So if you look at your left side, I just added what you were discussing. So this total to reallocate of 35,000, which takes into account the 25,000 that we're tentatively going to reserve for a supplemental budget for next year. So I'll keep this updated too. For sure.
All right, who's got ideas on where they would like us to start?
I would like we'll start with that one first. If we can go back and revisit Observer.
I'm absolutely inclined to agree. My understanding is that we only need about $10,000 more for them to have the original budget that they requested, rather than the smaller budget that they were willing to work with. And I did say earlier this year that since they had shown up with willingness to take less, that I would like to fund them.
I was just about to say the same thing, actually. I think the Observer has shown that they're willing to adapt and keep going through whatever budget they're allocated. But because we have the surplus, I think I would like to reward that effort a little bit more and allocate that to the Observer.
Are you guys thinking of doing the standard 4% reduction from what they asked that most of them are taking, or fully funding?
if I will say, if we were to do a full fund, that would take up more than half of our reallocation pot. Just as a quick
and just for a reminder too, right? They did not include the revenue in their projections. So in theory, they should bring in revenue next year to help offset cost as well.
Thanks for that reminder.
I would say, looking at this with the request of 66,000 and telling us that they would be able to function at around 54,000, I would say maybe an $8,000 allocation, so they get up to 60,000.
That's what I was thinking.
$8,000 into the Observer, bring them up to roughly 60,000.
I would have to agree with that.
Is the committee in agreement? Alrighty, we are down to 17,000 and some change.
If I may, if we plan on allocating more money to Observer, should we do the same to Pulse? Because they kind of fall under the same or similar department.
Also, Chairman Matheson, I would note that the 17,000 and some change that you just said would be if we took that number out of the 25,000 that we were talking about keeping, but we're reallocating 35,000 roughly.
You are correct.
Right now, after the adjustment to the Observer, you all have just over 27,000.
The other one I want to bring up, if we're going to use that they came to supplemental and they've using their funds, is club travel. That's another one that's come for supplemental funding, goes towards benefiting students. Yep.
And as far as that one goes, my understanding is that this is the budget that they moved the insurance to.
Correct.
And so you guys will see that they have a $40,000 increase from the last funding cycle, but that is the amount of the insurance. So it's not providing additional funds for clubs.
Yeah. For context, originally the insurance was under the student government board of directors. However, this year we realized, why is that there? And we moved it over to the club account because clubs, if you didn't know, used to be under student government. But we moved that over to the club accounts, which means it's a roughly $40,000 insurance to make sure that all of the clubs on campus are insured organizations. But it seemed the reallocation to club travel would be $5,000 roughly, or a little under 5,000, just as an idea.
Yeah, my vote is to go ahead and give them that and then return to the point that Abby was making.
Did you guys make a change to Pulse?
We have not yet.
No, we were about to talk about that one.
Yep. So going back to the discussion about Pulse,
I think Pulse showed us that Pulse does very well with what they're given. And they do a fantastic job of representing the school with what they do. I would like, if we can, to reward the students in that for the effort that they do and the accomplishments that they make.
Since we met Observer somewhat halfway, I think it would only be fair if we met Pulse somewhat halfway. So currently, I think it's roughly 6,000 that we're cutting them. So if we allocated them 3,000, I think, given the amount that we have allocated Observer, that would be a fair amount.
I agree. That's actually exactly what I was considering as well as 3,000.
which would leave us with around 19,000-ish.
I also agree.
Alrighty. So we're agreeing to partially reallocate funds back to Observer and Pulse, with Pulse having $3,000 reallocated.
You guys have 19,500 to go.
Okay. I was thinking, so after getting that, go back to some of these smaller friends, like museums or pep band, and also I can't remember who's OISP.
That's the international.
No.
since we were able to find, so I'm hearing a lot of hesitation on this for one reason or another. Since we were able to find the funds that we needed, I'd also be willing to talk about maybe giving a percentage or two back to the ECLC.
I would say staying on the conversation here for a moment. If we were to go back and lessen the cuts for these areas, the smaller areas, that could be better than fully giving everything back with the 16,000 or 1,600. And then we can go to discuss about percentage cuts back from the MCC.
Understandable. What if we cut these cuts in half? Yep, down to 2%, the original numbers that we were working with.
Also with the ASU legislative, I'm sorry.
Sorry, continue.
I was saying I think it'd be beneficial to try and give at least maybe like $500 back, just because that goes into senators' wages and their ability. No, it doesn't. Oh, I'm sorry.
That'd be
I'm wrong.
ASU Senate.
And I think the legislative, they have the student lobby fee money as well, right?
Frankly, as the student government representative, I would honestly say to cut legislative by another 1,000 and try to reallocate it back into the other ASU areas. If you guys remember, we have continuously done supplemental transfer requests from the legislative budget into other areas. I would say personally, yes, not too much. Don't hate me, Director Harmon. But because of the WSA budget that they have a significant external pool of money that they use for lobbying, hiring their liaisons. So I would say, if possible, I would like to reallocate it back in. Like, how much do they have right now? 26,000. I would personally say around 4,000 reallocated back into the other BOD areas. But I would like, as the ASC representative, I know my opinion has some weight to it. However, I do want to hear the rest of the committee's opinions on this.
I was just confused. So sorry about that.
I would say if our representative from government is recommending a cut from an ASCWU area, I do agree that it should go back to other areas of ASCWU.
I agree with Austin and Chairman Alex. And also ASU does have a history of reallocating, so yeah, I would say yeah.
Just
I hear your argument. I understand it, and I'm always down for moving money from a government institution to the people.
my board is gonna hate me. My board is gonna hate me. Alrighty. So
Where are we going to move that to?
let me take a look.
Remain professional, people.
My reasoning behind that being that senators are most of their budget comes from the stipend of the senators. which should be able to be covered by everything else. And with the drop of the Sweezy Day fund, they already have around $4,000 extra in there. So it would basically just be adding more of that into the senator pot.
And then I want to ask, so just to hear more of your justifications, why would we go for adding more to board and senate, but not to student life?
Student Life and Facilities has begun partnerships with a lot of the other campus areas, which have been taking not a majority, but a significant amounts of the costs that have been kind of offloaded previously. I only say BOD because that is where a majority of the receptionist staff, student wages, and a lot of the other student positions come from outside of the individual departments. So BOD has the most student wage in there, that's where that money would go back into likely.
I support that.
So what are we at now?
We are at 18,673.
Sounds like we concluded the most recent discussion. I would like to bring attention to source. I believe we've cut a little bit from them, and this is actually one of the better opportunities I think we've had to give money back to something that actively develops the professional research skills for our students. Source being the location where students take their own research that they wanted to do and present it to others.
Yeah, Source is, just for context, that is the professional development workshop that shows presentations. Is it every quarter, every semester,
I think it's every year.
every year? Okay.
They do the awards every quarter, or maybe not in fall, but winter and spring. And they had to come in at the beginning of the year. You might remember they came in for supplemental funding, asking for the summer awards, and they weren't awarded anything. But so I think that part of their presentation was to include those, expand the awards for summer.
While I would agree with Vice Chair Ba that this is a great way to give back to the student community, there was also the discussion of the MCC and potentially lowering one of the percentage cuts as well, which, considering how big those percentages, we might want to look at that first.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I would like to say, though, that eventually I'd like to get around to the veterans.
What would happen if we lowered that to the 4% cut, the MCC DEC?
This is currently 4%. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. ECLCs, it works out because they asked for the same thing in 26 as they asked for this year. So the dollar change, and I might have been able to do this better, but the dollar change shows the difference between what they requested this year and what you all have recommended. But the percentage change is showing from the prior cycle. And I don't know if that's helpful.
That's all right. Aren't data, isn't data fun?
Yeah, I love it.
Would we want to potentially lower MCC DEC by 1%? So down to 3?
Yeah, I'm down to see what happens.
Yeah, just to see.
You'll have still about 13,900 to go if you reduce that one.
I would say, because of all the deliberation that we've had around the MCC and the DEC. I think it's fair that we lower it by a percentage. As our last, unless there's any other recommendations, that's our last big reallocation item. I would say let's look again at ECLC just to test the waters to see how much a 1% decrease could do.
And then I think Bob wanted to talk about veterans as well.
And we will get to veterans right after this. Veterans and then source, so don't worry about.
So currently ECLC is sitting at a 7% cut. So we're gonna see what 6 looks like. Oh, wait. No, I messed that up. I went the wrong way. So you'd still have about 11,000 to go. Yeah.
Especially since we discussed that they have other sources of funding too from the parents and the students that utilize the ECLC. I think that's fair.
And then before you wrap it up, if you're gonna go to veterans next, you guys will still want to have a discussion about the flooring for the ECLC, and that's gonna be the one that is gonna spend over into reserves.
So is that money that will be coming out of?
No,
Oh.
no, because that is gonna be basically your, if let's say you recommend that flooring job position, job project, sorry, then you'll over allocate for the first year, because with the intent that that money is going to be allocated out of reserves, not out of the revenue that you anticipate.
I would say, yeah.
If I may, given the massive amount of cut that ECLC has taken, and given that this is kind of a necessity for the children, considering that they legally have to replace the flooring, I think this is a fair request, and I think that we should accommodate it.
Agreed, especially if it's coming out of reserves and not the numbers we're working with right now.
I agree as well. I think they've waited enough to start that project on their flooring.
For the record, I agree.
I believe.
To put it on the record, because I haven't said it, but yes, I agree as well.
I believe the committee is in full agreement here. Alrighty. Okay. With that cut to the ECLC, Aaron, how much do we have left? Let's talk about Veterans Center. Bob?
I've made a point to not talk about veterans at all up to this point. But I think we should give them the money. I guess that's my argument. We know what veterans do to even get to school, and fewer of the skills that are developed in service translate into higher education than one might think. They do end up needing a lot of help with the process. And in addition to that, the Veterans Office still not just helps veterans, but also reaches out to other students and holds events for them too.
Oh, I agree with Bob. Considering all that they've done, I think that we should fully fund it, and also considering that it would only take 1.5 out of how much do we have left? 11. I think we could probably do that, in my honest opinion.
I was going to say the same thing. So, yep, agree.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's feasible with the amount that we still have left to allocate, and It is, I would like to see definitely some more like advertisement for the Veteran Center and make sure that students are aware of who they are and what they're there for. And I think this funding could help with that.
Alrighty. Seems the committee is in agreement to fully fund the Veteran Center. Alrighty. Alrighty, on to the discussion of source.
I believe that, especially considering the environment that we're in, this is college. Anything that encourages students to go outside of the classroom and attempt to generate something that contributes to what humans call knowledge should be supported. And it's events like Source that push students to that higher echelon where they start to really consider themselves as being that person and wanting to potentially pursue education even beyond the undergraduate level.
I agree. I think source is incredibly valuable. I would definitely like to propose maybe allocating like 1,500 if we're still wanting to save that leftover 600-ish for other programs. And if not, I think fully funding it would also be beneficial as well. Those are my two ideas.
And I would just suggest something now that you all are kind of have the luxury of now you get to give funds out is maybe think about what other things would be more worthy of getting funds than this request, right? So anything more than this, if not, this could be a great place to put it.
Is the committee feeling a full fund or a $1,500 fund? Or something else?
And just to remind you, the reduction on this one is $2,164. So 1,500 would get them close to fully funded. Like Rachel mentioned, they'd leave about $600.
I would agree with that. And then we go through our other friends and for the rest of it. And yeah.
What is the official opinion of the committee?
Does anybody have an idea of, because I feel like we've gone through a lot of places now. Is there a place that is potentially more deserving of this money that we haven't addressed from y'all's perspective?
I would like to offer an opinion.
By all means.
Equity and Service Council.
Let's, y'all want to look at that?
Thank you, Robbie, for bringing that up because I was also going to bring that up.
The Equity Service Council serves around, Selena's going to kill me, 10 Equity Service Council clubs roughly, each of which representing a different cultural identity or space on campus.
We're starting to get to the smaller numbers now too. My vote is we have the money to fully fund both of these. I think we should, and then divvy up the little amount that's left towards the people that remain.
That would leave us around $6,000, right, Robbie? Not Robbie. Wow, Aaron. Hi. Okay.
I'll go ahead and plug it in. If you guys fully fund Source and ESC, then that will leave you about 40, almost 4,700. Oh, yep, there you go.
That would keep it you a little under 30,000 yourself.
Is it in the committee's interest to fully fund both ESC and Source?
I don't see a problem with it.
I would say fully fund both of them.
I believe I already said my opinion on that one.
And then there's also the art gallery that you haven't revisited yet, but I just gonna throw that out there as one that you might want to. I think everything else has been spoken of. Everything else that's being reduced has been discussed at least twice, except art gallery.
I would make a formal recommendation to clear the remaining little under 1,000 for the smaller 3 areas.
I fully agree.
If my math is right, we can do that with the just under 5,000 that we have. We can do that and give the art gallery what they're asking for, and that pretty much takes care of what we have left.
With a big smile on my face, I agree.
Aaron, that's what I was thinking for art gallery. Popped into my head.
Yep, or we could go through one more time. I mean, at this point, you've got
Could I make
a little bit of money that could go to MCC, yeah?
I have a small biased request.
Let's hear it.
Could we have the leftover 400 or so dollars go to student life and facilities?
It's actually 2,400.
Oh no, I know.
Oh.
Potentially leaving. Well, how would we feel about 1,400 of that going to student life and facilities for their flagship events?
Let's do it. Is my I guess I got excited.
No, 1,000 for leave 1,000 left in the pot essentially.
Okay, you guys are probably gonna hate me. You can tell me to get out, but I would recommend that you allocate the other $1,000 because you already have 25,000 sitting for supplemental, and there's no real reason to leave it on the table, and some area would appreciate having it.
I don't think I'm too upset about that. Can we go back and look at the numbers that we left under 1,000?
And we might look at some of these larger ones that were cut. KCW took a 4%, ECLC took a 6%.
And KCW has come a lot for supplemental this year, just putting that out there. So they have had multiple needs.
But they did increase, they're getting another 30 almost thousand. Yeah.
My vote is that it goes towards KCWU or the Publicity Center. The Publicity Center is the one that puts out hype, right? Yeah.
Okay. Between KCW and Publicity Center, who are we thinking?
I would vote for Publicity Center.
I would as well.
Just because I feel like they're more informative. Like,
We could also do a potential 50-50 split.
oh,
So both
we
get
could do
500.
that. We could
That's
do.
what's on my mind. I think we should do a 50-50.
50-50, I support.
Okay. So 500 to KCW, 500 to hype. Okay. Well, with that, we have met our goal with 2,500,000 to spare.
Go team.
Go team. All righty. Well, Robbie.
Make a proposal? What I would like to propose, if possible, if you're able to stick around, is have lunch. Let's take a quick break. And then you all had mentioned to me yesterday you wanted to see what the recommendation email that I'm going to send out looks like. If you're up for that after lunch, maybe we can go through that and I can make sure and harness your feedback and make sure the information I'm sharing is what you want shared to the base funded areas. Okay.
I don't think it'll be that.
Let's hope. Knock on wood.
I think just being a little sentimental, everyone's done a phenomenal job, and I'm very thankful to be on this S&A committee, and hopefully I can do it next year as well. But you guys are an awesome team, and thank you for making me not feel like I have to tear my hair out. So I appreciate it.
Well, with that, I will have us with a quick 15-minute recess. All right. All right, folks. We will be reconvening, and I will be turning my attention over to Robbie.
So this is where, so this is the email that I would be providing to all the base funded areas, letting them know about our process, how things went as far as deliberations. So let's start there, and then we'll jump over to the recommendations memo that I send, which basically which explains a little bit more. We had $5.1 million to spend. However, the asks were blah, blah, blah. And then we detail out every area and what we funded them. Is an attachment to this. So I thought we'd start with the email. So it's very thorough. It's kind of long, but basically telling them, you can read it and tell me what you think. But basically, we held our deliberations. See, I've got double words in here. Basically preliminary funding. Then I talk about the student funds financial manager overarching budget. We had to cut 248,000. I'll perfect the numbers. I just did generic things at the moment. I'm going to change this last word. Go ahead. Yes. So weird. I swear I wrote that in here, but clearly did not. So give me just a sec. Let me just make sure I didn't write it down here a little bit lower. I did not. Okay, good. I'm just going to put in some brief bullets and I'll write it out later. ASCWU, feedback, BOT for approval, no approval. We would reconvene in spring to cut you mean 200,000, right? Yeah, so I think it's an additional. That's right. Yep, I explained how following last year's decision, this is why we did this again. It also prompted us to revise the policy, which I shared with you all yesterday. These policy updates included minor revisions, title changes, things like that, but we did, and then I explain the 1 week cooling off period. So as of, my goal is to send this email this afternoon. They'll see it hopefully Monday morning, and then that starts our feedback period. Good. We can. I think this year, what I think is different this year is that, well, we didn't have to cut so much money, and I think that there was some generic. We started with 4%, and then we were able to readjust here. So I think I would maybe generalize it a little bit more. The only one I think I would provide specific justification to would be case management, because it was a fully defund, as well as music department travel, basically stating that we don't have the funds to accept new requests.
We'll kind of get that up.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So then I talk about how we will Alex will take it to the board of directors meeting. Do you guys have one finals week? Probably not, right?
Well, I don't think so, but...
Okay. And then, on to Joel, then on to Vero for their it's not even approvals. I say the word approval, but really it's just acknowledgement. And then I just thought it was important to explain the timeline. So January and February were herd-based funding presentations. As of tomorrow, we'll provide the first draft of recommendations. This is how feedback is going to be sought, either by them submitting it to us in writing by Friday, so I can put it on the agenda, or they can attend the public meeting and provide it to you in person as public comment. We will reconvene next Friday, the 13th, and make a decision based on that feedback you all hear. Like, oh yeah, we really missed up on that one. Let's edit this, or no, we stand by our decisions and we're going to move forward. So then I would call them final recommendations. So then that's where, again, I would share, Alex would take it to board of ASCWU. It would go on, and then it would move forward to PBAC, which is the President's Budgetary Advisory Council, then on to Board of Trustees. Yeah. Nope. I'll take that from you. Yep. Because again, we're just notifying even student government. So even if at your public meeting, somebody were to say, we just think that this is not being done well, this is not right, we would kindly thank ASCW for their opinion, but ultimately they don't get to send it back. Vero and Joel are the only ones that get to send it back, and that would be unprecedented. So then again, in April, it'll go to PBAC. Joel will take it to PBAC again, just for notification, and then it will get added onto the May Board of Trustees meeting for a vote of approval. And then that sets the budget for the next 3 years for base funding. So now let me show you real quick what, again, this was last year, so I have some work to do. So don't judge me too harshly on that one. But the recommendation document. Let me think about this, where to stick it. And let me share for those who are online. Okay, so let me make this way bigger here because I can't read this. I can't in Teams. Why do I forget that? It ain't get any better here. Let's try there. Okay, so this is what the formal memo comes out that looks like. So again, addressing ASCW, Joel, explaining what we did and that we're sending it for approval. We talk about the full funding allocation. So this is where we would put the amount you all had to allocate. And then this is kind of a snapshot of we put them in alphabetical order. We would show the amount they requested and then the amount recommended by you all in this. And then from there, we get into this is where I believe I will change the format for this year. Excuse me. I think we should make sure that it's clear that the funding priorities that we didn't cut at all. But really, I think it's just putting a snapshot of what's in there and what got cut. And then this is where we funded at a lower level. And then we did provide explanations on each of them, again, because I think it was so significant that was important to share outward. This year, I think the only two I would probably put on here again are music travel as well as case management. And then it's just really a wrap-up memo that would be attached to that email we just looked through. And there it is, ready for public feedback. Thoughts, feedback, anything else you guys think we should make sure that everybody knows as we're going into it?
Any comments?
Okay, I will go ahead and do this. I am going to run it just for transparency. Once I write it up, I am going to run it past Vero because I am her liaison as who reports to the advisor, as well as Trent and Aaron, because I want to make sure my numbers are right, because I guess I would definitely not want to send something out that's incorrect. But then I will include you all in the email. It'll be a big email because it'll include all our base funding areas, budget managers, but I'll include you all, and then we'll ask for public comment and feedback.
Is there anything else we have to discuss?
Next week, I guess I would just as a public comment, next week we will host the whole meeting. I would probably plan to be here from 3 to 5 on our last meeting. Again, depending on the feedback, maybe it gets cut short because no one has any feedback and everybody's happy with the recommendations and all we get are praises and loves. And then you all just make your final recommendation. So yeah, go ahead. Yes. 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 And you'll have to also vote on the supplemental requests that Lola presented on last week too. So you got a lot of voting and conversation to take place. Yes, correct. Just the reallocation. Yeah. Because at this point, yeah. And then the only last thing I would ask, if you haven't done already and you continue, if you plan on serving on the committee next quarter, if you could please fill out my doodle poll and tell me when you want to meet. Meetings will get significantly quicker, like an hour at the most, I believe, in any one time. I know Alex Cordone can't meet before 5 on any meeting. I'm not saying that that means we have to meet at 5. He just can't, so he may not be returning as part of the committee just based on scheduling conflicts. I can resend it. Okay, sure. Okay. Fair. I think somebody did, but I don't know who. So, okay, no problem. And try will not make it on Fridays at 3 so Rachel can come. No, stop. Sunday mornings.
Well,
Ugh. Brutal.
with that in mind, I will call this meeting to order, or I will adjourn this meeting at 12:30. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you all so much for your efforts. And we will see what the response to this is at the end of this week.